Okay. Welcome back, everybody. Let me just give me a second to make sure I got everything hooked up correctly. I want to make sure my sound is good. I want to make sure y'all can hear me. Just take some time to come on into the building. All right. Let's go on. Before I get started, let me get this screen share up so you guys can follow along as I talk. You already seen the title, so you know what we're going to be talking about in this one. You already know what we're going to be talking about in this one. Give me just a second. My screen share is taking a while to come up. Okay, here it is. Let me make sure I got that audio shared. All right. And excuse me. Almost ready, family. Bear with me. Almost ready. Okay, all right. There we go. Now check this out. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to Matthew Daniels TV. I am your illustrious host, Matthew Daniels, the writer, the author, the scribe, and the bookworm. But I'm not just a bookworm, world. I am the real bookworm. Make sure you get it right. And as always, may your name live on forever, and may your memory, family, never die. Hotel to Brooklyn Zoo. I see you in the building. Hotel fam. Thanks for tapping in. As always, it is a pleasure to see you in the building. You feel me? So y'all see the title of this one today. We're going to be talking about African nations confess to selling Africans to Europeans and apologize. That's right. We're going to be talking about African nations confess to selling Africans to Europeans and apologize. Now, the primary reason why I'm doing this video, I'm going to go into it in just a second, is because of a lot of the comments that I got on the last video that I posted, where I was talking about blood on African hands, and I was describing the concept of the African slave catcher and the African slave trader. Now, when I put that video up on my YouTube channel, here it is. If some of you didn't see it, you can go to my YouTube channel. It's going to be the video directly before this one. It was the last video that I posted, and it's called "Blood on African Hands: African Slave Catchers and African Traders." Now, I get the impression that some people may have got offended by the information that I was sharing. They may have gotten emotional about the information that I was sharing. They may have misunderstood why I was trying to share that information, as if I was attacking African nations or going in on African nations, or trying to take the blame away from the Europeans and shine a spotlight on the African nations. And none of that is true. Any of you guys that watch my content, any of you guys that have been following me, you know I'm really not even that type of guy. I primarily just like to share information, and I like to share information about things that I think individuals have never heard before. And when it comes to the history of the African Americans, right? The African Americans, the black people in America, when it comes to our history, I believe that an accurate understanding of exactly what happened to us is very, very important. Now, I'm not saying that no Europeans went and kidnapped Africans. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that no Europeans did anything criminal, vile, wicked, and evil when it pertains to our enslavement. I'm not taking any type of blame away from them, and I'm not trying to say that they do not have blood on their hands. What I'm trying to do is give a more full understanding of exactly what happened to us. And unfortunately, right? Unfortunately, a lot. I'm not talking about 1, 2, 3, 10, 20, 30, 100, 1,000, a lot. We're talking about in the millions, family. We're talking about in the millions. Unfortunately, a lot of our people who were enslaved here in the Americas, we were captured by other Africans and sold to the Europeans. Okay, that just is what it is. So when I posted this video, I got a lot of responses. Man, the comment section went kind of crazy. I got kind of more views on this video, on that last video, than I got on the majority of the videos I put up on my channel. And the comment section was just going crazy. Like, the comment section was just going crazy. I had individuals coming in the comment section. They were calling me a liar, saying that I was making things up, saying that I didn't know what I was talking about. They tried to say that no African sold any other Africans. That's mythological history, blah, 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 blah. And one thing about me, family, I like to debate. Okay, you have to understand this about me. I love to debate. I love like an intellectual sparring match, like nothing personal, no feelings involved, but a good intellectual sparring match to, put information out there on the table, build your case, challenge your opponent's information, and try to prove your point. I enjoy trying to do that. So when I first read the comments, when people were calling me a liar and saying that I didn't know what I was talking about, I was going to respond a totally different way. And not to be rude, but I was going to try to intellectually embarrass the individuals that I felt like was coming for my information. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to take it a different route. Now, I'm going to show that what I said was 100% accurate, but I'm going to do it a little more tactful. I'm not just going to attack, and I'm not just going to try to make anybody feel bad for being wrong. But I am going to say, whenever you come to this channel and you watch my videos, you might want to take some time to research what I'm saying before you just try to attack me in the comments, because a lot of the times I know exactly what I'm talking about. So what I want to do first, right? What I want to do first is I want to show you guys some of the comments that I got. Right? Now, these are some of the comments that I'm about to be addressing. Okay, these are some of the comments. So this individual responded to that video that I just told you about, Malian Deck, or however you pronounce that. They said, these are old plantation stories. The origin of the story has been traced to a French-speaking slave owner in Louisiana. The African slave catcher is a myth. Women from Eastern, let me just stop right there for a second. So this individual jumps in the comment section and they say that my narrative of the African slave catcher who sold other Africans to the Europeans, that's just an old plantation story that was created. This mythological concept was created by a French-speaking slave owner in Louisiana. Remember, they said that it was created by a French-speaking slave owner in Louisiana. Now, mind you, they don't give us a name. They don't give us any kind of date to put this in some type of chronological history. So they don't tell us what the name of the plantation was, so we can actually pinpoint where they're saying that this myth was created. But by the end of this video, I'm going to show you the African nations confessing. I'm going to show you the African nations confessing to capturing other Africans and selling them to the Europeans. And not only am I going to show you them confessing to the crime, I'm going to show you them asking for our forgiveness. Yes, I'm going to show you them apologizing. So by the end of this video, we're going to know that it wasn't a myth, and I don't really understand why this person said that. So they said the women from Eastern Europe are sold into slavery every day. Do we call the Eastern European countries slave traders? No. They arrest anyone they find selling their women. The people who sell women are called human traffickers or gangsters. The people who did this in Africa were gangsters, pure and simple. And it only became a problem after the African kingdoms had been destroyed or weakened to a level where they couldn't defend their own people. So right there, this individual, hold on just a second. I love to read the comments. Brooklyn Zoo says that's so damn sad, but they will believe everything the white man say, but not the brother man. Yeah, exactly. And what they should have just asked themselves, what would even make me say this? Why would I say this without proof? You understand what I'm saying? And honestly, I just want my people to understand exactly what happened to our ancestors. We need to know who was involved, why were they involved, so that we can make sure that it never happens again. Because unfortunately, you just can't trust everybody. You have to judge people based on their actions and their actions alone, right? You have to see how a person acts. You have to make sure that they are morally sound. You have to make sure that they are upright and righteous, because some people, they could be black, white, Mexican, Chinese. They could be the most vilest, wicked, despicable people that you ever want to meet. And they'll just as soon burn your house down, kill and rape your family. You understand what I'm saying? They'll do that to you. But anyway, so you see this guy right here in this comment, they already sort of acquiesced to the notion, but they're saying that the people who did sell any other Africans, if it happened, they already said it was a myth, but if they did sell any Africans, if it happened, they were gangsters, pure and simple. Now I can agree to that. They were damn sure violent, right? But this guy says that the problem is that this only became a problem after the African kingdoms have been destroyed or weakened to a level where they couldn't defend their own people. That's a lie. And I'm going to show you that that's a lie, because some of these were very strong kingdoms. They were strong. They were strong enough to invade other African nations and invade other African tribes, beat up on the people, carry their women and children and men off as spoils of war, drag them to the west coast of Africa, and sell them to the Europeans. They weren't destroyed and they weren't weakened. You say I'm lying? No, you lying, brother. But it's okay. I'm going to get you right. Look. They say no authority in Africa cooperated with slave traders. I'm finna prove that's a lie. Which king or queen of Africa sold their own people? So they want to know which king or queen of Africa sold their own people or people from another tribe. Look up the kingdom of Ghana, not the country. The kingdom of Benin, and read about Queen Nzinga. The truth will set you free. You are at the beginning of an incredible journey. Now, it's funny that you told me to look up the kingdom of Benin, because guess what? I'm going to show you the kingdom of Benin. And had you looked up the kingdom of Benin, you would not be telling me that this was a lie made up on the slave plantation. You just wouldn't have said it. Let's look at another comment, family. These are the things that I'm going to be dealing with. Look, this person tells me your whole narrative is wrong. Africans had slaves, but not in the way you think. They were able to work and earn and educate their slaves into society. True, slavery in Africa was not the same as slavery in America, but that wasn't the point. My narrative was that there were African slave catchers who sold other Africans to the Europeans. They're telling me that that narrative is wrong. They say the Europeans came over and took free people of their will and took them from their land, forced them not to speak their language, and denied them of anything. So you, talking about me, so you just made this video up because you just want views. Now, wait a minute. I'm going to be honest with you. Anybody on YouTube that makes a video, they want somebody to view the video. You understand what I'm saying? Everybody wants a view, or they wouldn't upload something to social media. Of course, I want people to watch the video, but I'm not going to lie to get people to watch a video. I'm not going to put up clickbait in the title to get somebody to watch the video. I could care less. Honestly, I mean, some of my videos, I get 15 views, but I keep posting because it's just something that I like to do. I like to share information. But I am excited whenever, people watch my videos, and it could be one person watch the video, comment. Yes, that excites me. That's why I put videos up, because I want people to watch them. But how you just said the Europeans came over and took people of their own free will. Yes, Europeans did come and kidnap, but I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you that Africans got blood on their hands as well. Now, this individual said lies. Now they call me a straight up liar. Lies. That is a drawing. Where are the real pictures? And what they're referring to is the thumbnail that I put up. Yes, that's a picture of Africans trading other Africans, but it's still a historical reality. So I just have a question. All right, I have a question for anybody that doubts the information that I've shared so far. What would you say if you heard it directly from the horse's mouth? Not Wikipedia saying it, not a website saying it, not me saying it, right? What if you heard the African nations who were guilty of the crime? What if you heard them say it themselves? And this is to everybody who called me a liar in the comment section of the last video. Would you believe them? Would you believe those African nations if they told you to your face? Yes, we kidnapped other Africans, we captured other Africans, and we sold them to the Europeans as slaves, knowing full well what they were doing. What would you say? I hope that you would be honorable and that you will come into the comment section under this video after I show you them confessing and asking for our forgiveness. I hope you come into the comment section and say, well, you know what, Pool, you know what, Matthew Daniels, you were right, I was wrong. I was wrong. They did do this to our people. So let's get off into it. Now y'all see why I'm doing this. So the first nation that we're going to take a look at is Cameroon. Now, Cameroon, officially the Republic of Cameroon, is a country in Central Africa. It shares boundaries with Nigeria to the west and north, Chad to the northeast, the Central African Republic to the east, and Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, and the Republic of the Congo to the south. Its coastline lies on the Bight of Biafra, part of the Gulf of Guinea, in the Atlantic Ocean. Due to its strategic position at the crossroads between West Africa and Central Africa, it has been characterized as being in both camps. Its nearly 27 million people speak 250 native languages, in addition to the national tongues of English and French, or both. So the first nation that we're going to go to is Cameroon, and I'm going to show you how during the transatlantic slave trade, there were Africans from what we call Cameroon today that sold other Africans off into slavery. Let's get it, family. Real quick, just to give you guys just a little information, because I do like to share information. One of the slave ports that's in Cameroon, because yes, there are slave ports in Cameroon, especially because it's right there on the coast. Remember, I told you guys, the Europeans set up shop all along the coast of well, not all along the coast, but in a lot of areas on West Africa, right? In West Africa. And they set up ports, they set up forts, they set up castles, right? And these places were used to house our ancestors after they were captured, and they were held chained up in these buildings and in these locations while they awaited a slave trading vessel to pull up into the port. And then some of these Africans would sell other Africans to the Europeans. We would go on the boats to the Americas and never be seen again. Now, one of these slave ports that's in Cameroon, the slave trade was heavy in Cameroon, is known as the slave port of Bimbia. Now, in modern times, it looks like this. Vegetation is grown over it. The place is in ruins, and the nation, they're not doing much with it. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to get money together, and they're trying to work on restoring this area and making this area accessible, more easily accessible to the general public, because as of now there are no roads leading out to it, and they want to make it a tourist destination, kind of like how Ghana has the Elmina Slave Castle as a hot tourist attraction, where a lot of African Americans go over to Ghana and they look at the Elmina Slave Castles and the door of no return, and they get to see firsthand where their ancestors were chained up and held while they waited on a European slave vessel to show up in Africa so that they could be sold to the Europeans and shipped across the Atlantic Ocean. Well, in Cameroon, they have these slave ports and they have these slave forts, but this particular one it hasn't really been kept up. But in modern times, they're trying to spruce it up so that they could make it a tourist attraction and possibly get some of that tourist money off of it, hoping that some of us, African Americans or people in the diaspora will we'll want to buy a plane ticket to Cameroon so we can see why our ancestors were sold off. So let's get into it, family. What I did at the top of the screen, you'll be able to see that I in this first screenshot, I left the link. To this article up there. I know people like sources, and you may want to, I'm going to show you the whole article, but I know how sometimes people want to go read the article for themselves, and there may be some links inside the article so you can do further research. So if you like, you can, screenshot this, pause the screen, anything of that nature, and just type that link in, get that link, type that in, and you can go read this story for yourself. But look what it says, family. Genetic quest leads to African apology for role in slave trade. Now, really and truly, I don't have to go too much further than the title. You know what this is about. Genetic quest leads to African apology for role in slave trade. Why would someone in the African nation of Cameroon be apologizing for their role in the slave trade? Because they sold some of the African Americans to the Europeans. I told you, I'm going to show you them confessing, and I'm going to show you them apologizing. Now, the interesting thing about this, the guy that you see on your left is an African American, right? Named William Holland. Now, the guy on the right, he's a member of the Fon tribe of a place called, a city called Bakau, right? Ngako, I can't really pronounce it, Ngalachu, right? In Cameroon. His name is Ngako Ngalachu, and he is of the Fon tribe of Baku, however you pronounce it. You can see it on the bottom. You can read it. And he is actually from Cameroon. Now, this guy, William Holland, like many of us, he was doing his genealogical research, taking DNA tests, trying to get newspapers, census reports, just, spending his money, doing his research to try to piece together his family tree and his family history. Now, this guy, what happened was, he was able to dig up so much information from paperwork and from his DNA tests, multiple DNA tests, that he found out that he had ancestors from Cameroon. And he did enough research to find out the actual tribes, right? The actual tribes that his people came from in Cameroon. And because of his genetics, because of his DNA markers, they realized that he was closely related to like some high class people of that tribe in Cameroon. He is related to quote unquote royalty, right? And so when he finds this out and he does his genealogical research and he talks to people in the tribe to try to find out, his personal family story, guess what he found out? He didn't find out that the wicked Europeans came to Cameroon one day, guns blazing, kicked in the door, right? Waged war for several years, and then carried his ancestors off into slavery. That's not what he found out. No, he found out that there was some infighting between tribes in Cameroon, and his ancestors were sold off into slavery by another tribe. Exactly what I told y'all was happening. Check this out. African businessman William Holland's royal ancestors were subjected to slavery in Virginia, but they were handed over into slavery by Africans. Now, a descendant of those tribes people has issued a formal apology to Holland for his ancestors' role in the 18th century slave trade. So there are in Cameroon today, there are descendants of the people who sold William Holland's ancestors into slavery. The head chieftain for the Cameroonian town of Baku, Ngako, I can't pronounce it. I'm just calling him Ngako. He's the head chieftain for the Cameroonian town of Baku. This guy, the head chieftain, told NBC News that he signed the statement on Saturday. Now, why would he sign a statement apologizing for selling that man's ancestors off into slavery if they didn't do it? Look what he says. We are sorry and issue an official apology for our involvement and the involvement of our ancestors in the horrible institution of transatlantic slavery. The statement read, the United States of America, France, and the United Kingdom should issue similar formal apologies for this evil institution that broke up families and caused generational hardships that continue to the present day. Now, think about the psychosis here. Or think about the psychology. This guy, this chieftain in Cameroon, is saying that the United States, America, the United States of America, France, and the United Kingdom should issue similar apologies to the one that he issued. So in this sordid tale, right? This web of treachery and deceit. You got the African American on one side who suffered the horrible institution of slavery, and then you got this Cameroonian. He has, just with his verbiage, he has placed himself in the same boat as the United States of America, France, and the United Kingdom. Think about that. He didn't say that they should apologize to the Cameroonians and the African Americans. He said, no. We, the Cameroonians, the United States of America, France, and the United Kingdom, we all owe the African American an apology for what we did to them. Why? Because like I told you earlier, these European powers, they had forts, castles, slave ports set up on the west coast of Africa. Now, while they did, I'm going to say it again, they did kidnap a lot of our ancestors. But that's not what we're talking about today. What we're talking about is these Europeans stayed on the coast. And there were Africans like this Cameroonian here, were the ancestors of this Cameroonian here, who grabbed up, kidnapped, snatched up, chained, enslaved other Africans, took them down to the coast and sold them to the United States of America, sold them to France, sold them to the United Kingdom. That's why he's saying that, because his people sold other Africans to those nations that he's describing. That's why they call it the transatlantic slave trade, because they was getting trinkets for flesh. These African nations was getting trinkets for flesh. You see? We are sorry, he said, and issue an official apology for our involvement and the involvement of our ancestors in the horrible institution of transatlantic slavery. Now, everybody that came into the comments on my last video called me a liar and said that I was making stuff up. Maybe you should issue me an apology next. Especially the one that said that this was a myth made up on the slave plantation by some French-speaking slave owner in Louisiana. If a French-speaking slave owner in Louisiana made this up as a myth, what the heck is this chieftain in Cameroon talking about? Come on, man. You gotta get your research up before you come for me. Gotta get your research up before you come for me. This isn't the first time Africans have acknowledged the historical role their forefathers played in slavery. This isn't the first time Africans have acknowledged the historical role their forefathers played in slavery. Look, it's long been known that in centuries past, warring tribes took captives and traded them to white slave merchants. That marked the first step in the long road to the plantations of the American South. So maybe here in America we don't know this history, but in Africa they know. Now, not all of the nations. I'm not broad brushing, but the ones I'm talking to, they know who I'm talking to. They know what they did. They been knew what they did. You see? Now, it's plenty of Africans and African nations that want to, they want to reunite with us. That's why they offered that apology, right? But it is some that look down on us. And why do you think that is? Because their understanding of history is that we was sold off anyway by their ancestors. You get what I'm saying? That's why they may want us to, stop complaining about. Well, you need to stop complaining about slavery. You need to stop complaining about what happened. Because their ancestors helped do it to us. And they say this ain't even the first time that Africans have acknowledged the historical role that their forefathers played. Look, Matthew Kerekua, the president of the West African nation of Benin. Now, he already passed away, RIP, but when this was written, he was still alive. Matthew Kerekua, the president of the West African nation of Benin. Benin was in one of your comments. Somebody told me to look up the Kingdom of Benin. Maybe you should have looked up the Kingdom of Benin. Caused a sensation in 1999 when he apologized to African American clergy for his country's role in the slave trade. Ever since then, officials from Benin have been traveling to the United States to offer their regrets and seek reconciliation. Now, remember that. More on that later. Look, I knew one day I wanted to come to this land and ask forgiveness. Let me blow that up. I want y'all to see this, man. I knew one day I wanted to come to this land and ask for forgiveness of my black brothers and sisters One of Benin's provincial kings told a gathering in Alabama this summer. Leaders from other West African nations, such as Ghana and Nigeria, have issued or at least discussed similar apologies. You see this? So already now we got Cameroon on the list. We got Ghana. We got Benin. We got Nigeria. Right? We got all of them on the list and all of them in the mix already. And what do they all have in common, family? What do all of these nations have in common? They West African nations. That's why they West African nations. West and Central Africa, ain't that where we came from? Didn't we come from West and Central Africa? Huh? So why is it that these West African nations are issuing apologies? What are you apologizing for? Selling us, man. I'm gonna be honest with y'all, man. When I was doing my own genealogical research, looking at my family background, now I've heard this before, and I on the surface level I knew about what happened. Africans selling Africans, right? I knew about that, but when it really hit home is when I was doing my own genealogical research. I did my DNA. I paid for DNA tests. You know what I mean? I was looking up old census records, old slave bills. I mean, I spent hours upon hours researching, trying to find myself, trying to find my ancestors, trying to figure out where did I come from? How did I get in this situation that I got myself in? Right? And you know how you will have multiple things mixed in your DNA. And so one of the things I had mixed in my DNA was Congo blood from the Congolese. And so I dug into the Congo. I was like, man, am I Congolese? Am I are my people from the Congo? And I dug into the history of the Congo. And as I dug into the history of the Congo, I was reading about it and I was studying about it. And I found out that in like the end of the 1600s, beginning of the 1700s, they had like a real bad civil war. And not just a civil war. The Portuguese had their hands, the Portuguese had their filthy hands all in the mix. But they had a real bad, heavy civil war. And two houses were fighting for the throne, fighting for power. And the house that won rounded up a lot of the members of the house that lost and a lot of their supporters. And you know what they did, family? They sold them into slavery. And when I seen that, I mean, it broke my heart. Man, salute, shalom and hotep to you, Taz. Shalom and hotep to you, family. But yeah, it broke my heart. I didn't even want to look into the Congo no more. Because it was like, what I found, I was like, wait a minute. Some of y'all sold y'all own people. It's possible that I came over here because my own family sold me out. I mean, damn. I wanted to hear how the wicked white man, right? I wanted to hear how the wicked white man came and kidnapped me. Now, they did kidnap a lot of people. Again, there's blood on their hands. I'm not absolving them of nothing. But that's not the conversation today. I wanted to hear about how the wicked white man captured me. And instead, I started running into stories about Africans selling Africans. And I didn't even want to research no more. But, it is what it is. But look, let's go a little further, family. The apology signed by, y'all see the name, I can't really pronounce it, Ngalachu, a member of Cameroon's tribal nobility, who is also known as the Fawn of Bako, is unusual in that it's directed toward a specific family. Genetics has something to do with that. Over the course of several years, Holland has employed DNA DNA test to narrow down the area where his African ancestors lived. For Holland and millions of others whose forebears came to America unwillingly as slaves, me and you, such genetic testing provides the only way to trace ancestry back more than a few generations. So now, this is what I didn't like neither. Now, this Cameroonian tribal nobility guy, the Fawn of Bako, when he issued this apology, he only issued the apology to William Holland's specific family, although they sold off more than just his specific family. But the apology was just to that family instead of, apologizing to all of the families that he hurt or that his ancestors hurt. After some fits and starts, Holland's genetic findings pointed to a connection with Cameroon's Oku clan, and that opened the way to deeper historical revelations. Oh, my bad. Hold on. I had one more paragraph. Modern day members of the Oku clan tell of a time in the 1770s when scores of their ancestral kin were abducted by rival clans and passed on to the slavers. That time frame matches up with the transatlantic voyage that Holland's great-great-great-great-grandfather took to Virginia, where he was sold as a slave. Now, it's a couple of things I want you to take from that paragraph. Listen. Modern day members of the Oku clan tell of a time in the 1770s when scores of their ancestral kin were kidnapped. First thing, remember, look, the apology signed by Ngalachu, a member of Cameroon's tribal nobility, who is also known as the Fawn of Bako, is unusual in that it's directed toward a specific family. And what he means by specific family is the family of William Holland, the man that exposed his head with the DNA research. So he only apologized to the family of William Holland. But they confess that scores, many of their ancestral kin were abducted. So there's more families than just the family of William Holland that got abducted. That's the first thing I want you to look at. He knew, that Cameroonian knew, that he only apologized to one family, but there were many families that were hurt. Right? By those African slave catchers and traders. Because he said they were abducted by rival clans and passed on to the slavers. I keep telling you, I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you. It's like medicine. But you need the medicine because you have to have a proper understanding of history. You have to know everything that happened, not just bits and pieces. A lot of our people, and I'm talking millions. I ain't talking about 100, 200. I'm talking millions of our people were captured by other Africans, drugged, kicking and screaming to the West Coast, locked up in slave dungeons, sold to Europeans, and brought over here to the Americas. Point blank period, man. That's just the truth. That's just the truth. You know, we gotta just you gotta just take that for what it's worth. The genetic test as well as genealogy. Oh man, wait. There's one more thing I want you to take from this. Look, he say modern day members of the Oku clan tell of a time, oral history, tell of a time in the 1770s, oral history. So those members of the Oku clan in modern times while we're alive, they have passed down these stories from the 1700s from when Africans were selling Africans as slaves. So don't think for 1 second that they don't know what they did. They know. They know. Now, it took this guy, William Holland, doing all this genealogical research and going over there and being like, hey, man, I found out I'm part of you guys' tribe. Hey, I came over here. You know, my family came over here and around this time frame. Well, you know, what happened? And they was like, oh, okay, you busted me. We busted, hand in the cookie jar. Listen, this is what happened. Scores of our ancestral kin were abducted by rival clans. Bing, bada bing, bada boom. So they know. They know. They know what happened to us, family. They have been, this is their oral history in Africa tells about what, you know, I used to think about all the time too. I used to be like, what do they tell themselves in school? You know how we learn about slavery in school, you know, we talk about it, you know, like what in Africa, in Western Central Africa, what do they say about it? And I wonder, do they even talk about it? Apparently they do. Some of these stories have been passed down from the 1700s. They may talk about it more than we do. Right? But they just haven't shared that information with us because it makes them look bad. It makes them look bad. It makes them look bad. The genetic test, as well as genealogical pedigrees and tribal stories, oral history, suggested that Holland's roots go back to Balak, a well-known patriarch of Northwest Cameroon's Niso clan who came to Oku centuries ago. They done damn near, man, their oral history is so tight. They done damn near named the man's ancestor that came over here. You feel me? And so it's almost like, hey, what's going on, Sandra? Good morning, good morning. Welcome. Good to see you in the building. So some of us, you know, if we can just find, you know, through our research and our DNA genetic testing, just find, you know, links to tribes or specific areas over there in Africa, and we could talk to them. And if they are honest, we could find out more about what happened to us. Look, he says, as Holland forged deeper ties with the royalty of Cameroon's clans, all that history became a major focus of discussion. This January, the Georgia-based businessman restored 3 long-lost ceremonial masks to the Oku and Niso clans and took the opportunity to show them chains and shackles that were used on slaves in America. Holland said the Cameroonians were shocked by the story he told. They said it's time to make amends with the gods. It's time to do something with the families and reestablish a relationship, he recalled. Now, real quick, while they talking about what they said that he restored some tribal masks, what it was some legitimate Cameroonian tribal masks that was stolen or that came up, you know, missing in like the early 1900s, popped up on eBay. And so, you know, as, you know, a matter of diplomacy or whatever, or, you know, extend that olive branch, my boy William Holland bought them off eBay. And he bought them off eBay and took it to Cameroon with him and, like, you know, to repatriate those particular masks. And you see right there, he's holding up 2 of them. I believe they say the one on your right, the elephant, the multicolored elephant, is has something to do with some kind of like secret society. They wore that. They was part of some kind of like secret society or whatever. And the one on the left, what did they say? Was worn during funerals. Okay, it was worn during funerals, and they say he paid around $1,000. So, he did some real good things for him. But yeah, basically. And so just to wrap this particular segment up, he had some papers drawn up to where the Cameroonians could issue a formal apology after everything was verified. And they signed the papers and they apologized for their role in the slave trade, in the transatlantic slave trade. So everybody who was on my last video saying that I was lying and saying that I was making things up, I wonder what you're going to say now. Right? Are you going to apologize and just say, hey, you know what? I just didn't know this history. Well, you ain't really got to apologize. I guess I'm just saying that. But I really just want you to know the information. I want you to know what happened to your people. Now, in that particular, we're finna move on to another African nation. We're gonna deal with Cameroon. They done threw Ghana under the bus. They threw Nigeria under the bus, and they threw Benin under the bus. So what we're gonna do now, we're gonna really take a deeper look at Benin. Now, in that article that I just read, a statement that they made that I told you guys put a pin in it. We're gonna come back to it later. They said Mathieu Kérékou, the president of the West African nation of Benin, and remember, he's already passed away, so he's not alive anymore. Excuse me, I think he passed away in like 2015. But this guy caused a sensation in 1999 when he apologized to African American clergy for his country's role in the slave trade. Ever since then, officials from Benin have been traveling to the United States to offer their regrets and seek reconciliation. So everybody that told me I was lying about Africans selling Africans into slavery, here you have a president of a West African nation, of Benin, apologizing for his country's role. So who is Mathieu Kérékou, and what role did the West African nation of Benin play in the slave trade? Let's get into it, family. Now, Mathieu Kérékou was a Beninese politician who served as president of the People's Republic of Benin from 1972 to 1991, and the Republic of Benin from 1996 to 2006. After seizing power in a military coup, he ruled the country for 19 years. For most of that time, under an unofficial Marxist-Leninist ideology, before he was stripped of his powers by the National Conference of 1990. He was defeated in the 1991 presidential election, but was returned to the presidency in 1996 election, and controversially reelected in 2001. Now, this guy was a very interesting and important figure in the modern day political realm of Benin. Okay. Now, as you can see, he seized power in a military coup. He was trained up in the military from a time before he actually seized power, and he was a right-hand man of another individual that had seized power in a coup. Military coups go on in Africa. Well, they go on everywhere. Let me say that. But we're talking about Africa right now. So military coups is nothing new. It's nothing new. They will, if the president ain't doing what he's supposed to be doing, they will take over. Because they got different tribes, they got different factions, right? And if they don't like how somebody is acting and they're more powerful than them, it's gonna kick their butt and take over. Which ironically led to a lot of us being captured and sold. Tribal beef. Because when the fights would happen and somebody would take over to get rid of their rivals, they'll sell them off into slavery back in the day. And so if slavery was still going on, that's probably what they'll be doing right now. But this guy was a very, very, very important figure. So we see where Benin is at on the continent of Africa. You see next to Benin, to the east of Benin is Nigeria. To the east of Nigeria is Cameroon. So we're still right there. They're very close to Cameroon, the nation that we just left. But what I want you to understand before we go further is names change and sometimes borders change. Okay? So when you look into history, don't be confused by the name changes. So what I want you to understand first is that Benin, the West African country of Benin, is Dahomey. When you hear the word or the name Dahomey, that is Benin. And Dahomey is the kingdom of Dahomey. Okay? That region has been known as the kingdom of Dahomey. It has been known as Dahomey. It has been known as French Dahomey. It has been known as Benin or the Republic of Benin. It's all the same thing. And what I want you to understand is when you go back in time to the slave trade, it's not Benin, right? It is the kingdom of Dahomey. And the kingdom of Dahomey, which is Benin, was heavy in the slave trade. The movie, if any of you have seen it, called the Warrior Queen, the Warrior Queen, no, the Woman King, the Woman King. That's about the Dahomey tribe. When you had those women, those fierce women warriors that was kicking butt all throughout the movie. They were a real thing. The kingdom of Dahomey had an elite fighting force of all women that fought on behalf of the king, right? And they handled big business. Now, if you remember in that movie, The Woman King, it was the king of Dahomey was doing business with Europeans selling slaves. That's real. Now I'm not saying the events and all of the events in the movie are real. I'm saying it's based on real events. But the kingdom of Dahomey was heavy in the slave trade. And the kingdom of Dahomey is Benin. So when you're looking at this guy who is the president of modern day Benin, the reason why he's apologizing for what his country's role in the slave trade, you're not going to see what Benin did. You're going to see what the kingdom of Dahomey did. But they're the descendants of the kingdom of Dahomey. That's what you need to understand first. So let's talk about Benin a little bit, just so you can have some context to where we're at and what we're talking about. Now, Benin, officially, the Republic of Benin, is a country in West Africa. I just showed it to you. It is bordered by Togo to the west, Nigeria to the east, Burkina Faso to the northwest, and Niger to the northeast. The majority of its population lives on the southern coastline of the Bight of Benin, part of the Gulf of Guinea, in the northernmost tropical portion of the Atlantic Ocean. Let's go down a little bit. From the 17th to the 19th century, political entities in the area included the Kingdom of Dahomey, the city-state of Porto Novo, and other states to the north. This region, Dahomey, Benin, this region was referred to as the Slave Coast from early 17th century due to the high number of people who were sold and trafficked in during the Atlantic slave trade to the New World. Now, you may be thinking, wait a minute, the west coast of Africa, it was plenty of slave ports and slave castles over there. I thought all of the west coast of Africa, I thought that was the slave coast because that's where they got the slaves from. Not exactly. This place, Benin, the kingdom of Dahomey, they were sold integral to the slave trade. They sold so many Africans to the Europeans that their area, their region, was referred to by the Europeans as the slave coast. Even though they were getting slaves from other places, it was like it's the slaves or it's such abundance right here, man, that they called it the slave coast. Right? Look, the kings of Dahomey sold their war captives into transatlantic slavery or killed them ritually in a ceremony known as the annual customs. By about 1750, the king of Dahomey was earning an estimated 250,000 pounds per year by selling African captives to European slave traders. The area was named the Slave Coast because of a flourishing slave trade. They named it the Slave Coast because this African nation, Dahomey, they had so many slaves that they were selling from that area. Okay? So many. Now, no, real quick, I wasn't going to go into this. But since I mentioned, matter of fact, I ain't going to zoom in. Look at the top paragraph. Since I mentioned that movie, I want to show you what I'm talking about. Look, in the Dahomey, some younger people were apprenticed to older soldiers and taught the kingdom's military customs until they were old enough to join the army. They were very warlike. Dahomey instituted an elite female soldier corps variously called Ahosi, the king's wives, Mino, our mothers in Fongbe, or the Dahomean Amazon. This emphasis on military preparation and achievement earned Dahomey the nickname of Black Sparta. Remember the Spartans from the movie 300? Black Sparta. From European observers and 19th century explorers such as Sir Richard Burton. So those elite female soldiers were highlighted in the movie The Woman King. And anybody that was here from the beginning, remember one of the comments that was calling me a liar? They said that Africans only sold Africans after they were defeated and they were too weak to defend themselves. And I said I was going to show you that that's a lie. Because the Dahomey, they were not weak and they were not too weak to defend themselves. They were elite fighters. But what they did, they used their brute strength and they used their elite fighting potential to capture other Africans and sell them to the Europeans. And they did it to such a degree that their area was named the Slave Coast. Right? Look, let's talk about the Slave Coast for just a second. Then I'm going to show you where it's at. And I'm going to show you the significance. The Slave Coast is a historical name formerly used for that part of coastal West Africa along the Bight of Biafra and the Bight of Benin that is located between Volta River and the Lagos Lagoon. The name is derived from the region's history as a major target of mass violence and human trafficking that Europeans targeted the local communities with during the Atlantic slave trade from the early 16th century to the late 19th century. Other nearby coastal regions historically known by their prime colonial export are the Gold Coast, the Ivory Coast or Windward Coast, and the Pepper Coast or Grain Coast. Look, check this out. The transatlantic slave trade led to the formation of an Atlantic community. Pay attention to this. Of Africans and Europeans in the 17th, 18th, and 19th century. Roughly 12 million enslaved Africans were purchased by European slave traders from African slave merchants during the period of the transatlantic slave trade. Remember what I told you. When I'm talking about Africans selling Africans, I'm not talking about one or two. I'm not talking about 10 or 20. I'm not talking about 100 or 200. I'm not even talking about 1,000 or 2,000. We talking millions. Now, they kidnapped millions too, okay? There's blood on European hands. But that's not the topic of discussion for today. Millions of our ancestors, ladies and gentlemen, were captured and sold by other Africans. This is why the president of Benin, aka Dahomey of the slave coast, was offering his sincerest apologies to the African Americans. Why? Because roughly 12 million enslaved Africans were purchased by European slave traders from African slave merchants during the period of the transatlantic slave trade. These ports traded slaves who were supplied from African communities, tribes, and kingdoms, including the Alada, the Ouida, which were later taken over by the Dahomey kingdom. You just have to know this history. You just have to know this history. It's like medicine. You got to take the medicine. Okay, you got to take the medicine. Now look, this is a close-up shot of West Africa, right? Excuse me. And where you see this arrow pointing to, you see where it's saying slave coast? I'm just doing this to show you that all of West Africa, even though they were getting slaves from everywhere, wasn't the slave coast. Now you got the slave coast right there. Let me show you. That's the slave coast. Look, Benin, slave coast. Benin, slave coast, Benin. All right? Look, right next to it, you got the Gold Coast. Slaves came from there too, but not as many. You got the Grain Coast. And they were naming these coasts on their maps. So when they showed these maps to people, people would just know, okay, a lot of grain is coming out of here. A lot of gold is coming out of here. And a lot of slaves is coming out of here. And those slaves coming out of there, like it or not, were captured by Africans. They say modern historians estimate that between 2 and 3 million people were transported out of this region and traded for goods like alcohol and tobacco from the Americas and textiles from Europe as part of the triangular trade. Historians have noted that though official records state that 12 million enslaved Africans were transported to the Americas from Africa, the actual number of slaves purchased by European slave traders was considerably higher. So it's way higher than 12 million. They lowballing the numbers. But see, that's why they call it a trade. That's why they use that language, family, because they were bringing alcohol, tobacco, and textiles, and these African slave traders and slave catchers, vile human beings, just is what it is, were trading flesh. And it just so happens that the flesh that they traded or sold away was the flesh of our ancestors. You got to know your ancestor story, whether it hurt or not. You got to know it. Look at this. From the Chicago Tribune. Benin officials, Dahomey, Kingdom of Dahomey. Benin officials apologize for role in U.S. slave trade. You see? Because I know somebody was going to say, oh, that's just Wikipedia. That was Wikipedia. You can't believe Wikipedia. Just because Wikipedia say they did it. No. They confessed. Confess. Confess your sins. Confess your sins, man. Like a Catholic. I need to get me a booth. I need to get me a black shirt with a white with one of them white father things. You understand what I'm saying? For real, I need to go to Africa and I need to sit down to him like, hey, look, man, look, I know all about what the Americans did over here. I know all about that. I grew up over here. I know all about that. I got that down pat. And we demanding our reparations from them. I got that locked, socket, and barrel. This is new to me. Now, what I need you to do is I need you to confess your sins, man, so we can get the other half of the story. Confess your sins, and I need to just have 5 years straight of these different nations just coming in the booth and telling us what their ancestors did. You see? Confess. But they did confess. And they apologized. I got to give them their call for apologizing. They did apologize. Look, officials from the West African nation Benin, Dahomey, apologized during a ceremony here for their country's role in once selling fellow Africans by the millions to white slave traders. This ain't Wikipedia. They came, officials from Benin, Dahomey, came to America and confessed to selling millions of their fellow Africans. The group is making several stops in Virginia and Washington, D.C. to publicize President Matthew Caricou's recent apologies for his country's participation in the slave trade. We cry for forgiveness and reconciliation, said Luke Nakaja, Minister of Environment and Housing for Benin. The slave trade is a shame, and we do repent for it. Now, I told y'all in the last video, blood on African hands. Some people told me I was making it up. What would you say if I show you the African nations confessing to their crimes? Benin, Dahomey, a country of 4.7 million people, was called Dahomey, like I've been saying, in the 17th century. Let me read that again. Because y'all mean, Benin, I know Benin, Dahomey. They tell you they Dahomey, man. Benin, a country of 4.7 million people, was called Dahomey in the 17th century when it was a major supplier of slaves for white exporters shipping from what was called the Slave Coast. Some accounts say Dahomey rounded up more than 3 million people for sale to slave traders. Come on, man. Man, look, if you haven't already, hit that like button. Hit that like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you can be notified when I go live. Man, look, our ancestors' history, I'm giving it to you, raw and uncut. Like some of you ain't never heard it before. Huh? Some accounts say Dahomey rounded up more than 3 million people. If you think, man, think about how many descendants can 3 million people make? Right? It's somebody in the chat right now. It ain't even a lot of people, but it's somebody in the chat right now. It's somebody that's going to watch this video after it goes up in the days, weeks, months to come. And you want to know what's crazy? Somebody that's a descendant of one of these 3 million people that was rounded up by the Dahomey is going to see this video. Hell, my ancestors might have been rounded up by the Dahomey. Let me hold on. I got another comment. Y'all know I like to read the comments when they do come through. King Ampu, you sound like our King El Hajj Malik El Shabazz, Malcolm X. Man, look, one of the highest that's one of the highest honors anybody done ever bestowed on me, to tell me I sound like the great. One of the greatest ancestors that we got on these shores. Salute. Hey, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. To walk 3 feet in the shoes of such a great man would be impeccable. You understand what I mean? All saluting, all high honors to him. But there we go. I told you, not 1, 2, not 10, 20, not 1,000, millions. And this is just Dahomey. Remember, I showed you guys. It wasn't just Dahomey doing it. I showed y'all Cameroon apologizing for selling other Africans, right? And in that article where the Cameroonian confessed, they threw Ghana under the bus. They threw Nigeria under the bus. We're talking multiple nations with blood on their hands. Millions. I gotta say it. I got millions. Come on, man. Come on, man. People got the nerve to tell me I'm making this up. It's all a myth. Myth where? They confess. Look, here's another story. And the thing about it is, after that, the former president of Benin, aka Dahomey, made that apology. They went on tour, basically. They was going around apologizing to us over here. They came over here and they've been apologizing. And they were probably the worst ones. I don't think it was another I don't think it was another nation that sold more than they did. But there was some other nations that was definitely selling. Look, another Benin ambassador apologizes for slavery. You know, it's so easy to say white man did it to us, but we share in the responsibility. Ambassador Cyril Ogun told an audience Friday at Southern University. Ain't that what I've been saying in this video? Right? Ain't that what I've been saying? Yeah, we're gonna hold the white man feet to the fire, the European feet to the fire for what they did to us here in America. But let's talk about how we got here. A lot of us was minding our business, living our life. And here come Dahomey, right? Chaining us up, taking us to the coast. Baton Rouge is the first of several U.S. cities where Ogun is formally apologizing for his country's role in the slave trade that brought Africans to America. Other leaders from the nation have made similar addresses in recent years. And it says some of the same stuff I saw in that other article. Hold on. Let me see. Oh, okay. Many Africans suspect the descendants of slaves in the United States and elsewhere still harbor ill feelings toward Africa because of it, Ogun said. Reconciliation, he said, is the first step to healing old wounds and opening economic development. We have a unique position here in America where, a lot of us, we become business people. We can get our hands on a lot of money. They want to do business with us. But look, now check this out. I tried to make a video telling people that Africans sold Africans, and people told me that I was lying. But look what they think in Africa. Many Africans suspect the descendants of slaves in the United States and elsewhere still harbor ill feelings toward Africa because they sold us. But what they don't know is a lot of us don't know that they sold us. We still fight against it. So while they thinking we got ill feelings toward Africa because we looking at it like, man, y'all sold us off into slavery. You know, a lot of our people don't even know that they did it. It's like hush, hush. You can't even speak about it. It's, you know, he who name should not be spoken of. That which you should not speak. No, we're gonna speak on everything that happened to us, and we're gonna shine a light on everybody involved. The president of Benin, the people of Benin, have asked me to come here and apologize for the government, for the Benin people, aka Dahomey, and for Africa, for what we all know happened. Ogun told the audience, where our parents were involved in this awful, this terrible trade. Listen, the man say that the Benin people, the people of Dahomey and Africa, know what happened. They know what happened. They know what they did to us. You ever wonder, when I was a kid, I used to wonder why nobody came to save us, you know? Because, you know, in my mind, I thought it was a great war that was fought. My nation lost, and I was carried off into slavery. And in my mind, I was like, you mean for 400 years? Or, you know, maybe not a whole 400, but you know, that's what we say, for 400 years. Nobody gathered together their warships to come rescue they people that was kidnapped. I couldn't wrap my mind around it. I always wondered as a child growing up, like, why nobody came to save me? Why nobody came to save our ancestors? Why after we were taken, why didn't they regroup, build their forces, unite as the West Coast and come get us back? But my young mind, I couldn't understand. They didn't come get us back because they had sold us off. That's why they didn't come get us back. You see? They had blood on their hands. And then when they descendants knew what happened, they wasn't sure about making some kind of connection with us because they like, man, we might want retaliation for what happened. You see? Crazy. Crazy but true. He knows, talking about the president, RIP, he knows the damage on our side that came from slavery, Ogun said. He knows how this robbed our own society at home, how it turned us against each other. In 1999, Keroku called a conference to discuss reconciliation between nations involved in the slave trade and the descendants of slaves. So he called a conference to discuss reconciliation between nations, multiple African nations that were involved in the slave trade, and us, the descendants. During that conference, apologies were made and reconciliation was started, said Vandora Williams of the Reconciliation and Development Court, which grew out of that conference and is temporarily based in Louisiana. This was a move that people wanted but didn't know how to articulate. The pain ran so deep. Now, one of the one of the cities that a lot of the slaves was sold out of in Benin, Dahomey, is called Ouidah, right? It's called Ouidah. Now, Ouidah, known locally as Glexwi, formerly the chief port of the Kingdom of Ouidah, is a city on the coast of the Republic of Benin. The commune covers an area of 364 blah, 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 blah. Right? Look, Ouidah saw its role in international trade rise when the Royal African Company constructed a fort there in 1650. Ouidah troops pushed their way into the African interior, capturing millions of people through wars and selling them to European and Arab slave traders. By 1716, the Kingdom of Ouidah had become the second largest slave port in the triangular trade, as noted by the crew of the slave ship Ouida Galley when it arrived to purchase 500 slaves from King Hafon to sell in Jamaica. The kingdom was ruled by King Hafon, who received his coronation crown as a gift from Portugal, until in 1727 the kingdom of Ouida was captured by the forces of King Agaja of Dahomey. So Ouida became a part of Dahomey, Benin, but they too had their hands in the slave trade. Okay? To the tune of millions. Going into the interior, the troops pushed their way into the interior, capturing millions of people and selling them to European and Arab slave traders. You understand what I'm saying? Look, this is interesting. In 1860, Ouida was the port that sent the last recorded shipment of slaves to the United States, even though that country had prohibited the transatlantic slave trade in 1808. This illegal shipment was aboard the Clotilda and went to Mobile, Alabama. How many of y'all have ever heard about the Clotilda? The quote-unquote last slave ship to come to America. That ship, Clotilda, left out of Ouida, Dahomey, because this place was ran by Dahomey at the time. And the interesting thing is, this was in 1860. The transportation of Africans to the America as slaves had become illegal in 1808. This is what, 52 years? 52 years after it's illegal. You still have Europeans indulging in the trade, but you still have the Africans in Africa 52 years after it's illegal sending Africans over here. Right? This is around 1860, around the time when the Civil War kicked off. Around the time of the Civil War, you still had Africans selling Africans. Imagine that. They didn't want to let they just didn't want to let it go, man. They just didn't want to stop. It was just too good to them. It was getting rich. They didn't care. So now that's why they're going on their campaign apologizing. Look, this is the Door of No Return, a memorial art monument to the transatlantic slave slavery on the coast of Ouida. Millions went through here. And you can see they have images of their own African brothers and sisters chained up, tied up, being led. You see in the center is a boat. That's a European slave vessel, slave trading vessel. And you see our ancestors being led towards that ship. And you got images lining the door of no return. And now you see, like it's like a it's like a tourist attraction now. It's a tourist attraction where we can go see why our ancestors was sold off, led through this door by other Africans. So never again should you tell somebody that this is just a myth. This is real. This is actual history. It wasn't 10, 20. It wasn't 100. It wasn't 200. It wasn't 1,000. It was millions. And I let you hear the Africans themselves say it. African nations confess to selling Africans to Europeans, and they apologize. So this video should end all doubt. It should end all debate that got stirred up by my last video. This should not be mentioned again. It's just a historical fact. The Africans confess. They tell you that they did it. They apologized for doing it. So anybody that's telling you that it didn't happen, they just don't know what they're talking about. Now, to really put the icing on the cake, to really put the icing on the cake, I'm going to let you hear it. I'm going to let you hear it. I'm going to let you hear it good. I'm going to show y'all a video. And it's just like a 30 seconds to a minute long video. Not that long. Where I'm going to show you. Hold on, let me share my screen. I'm going to show you them confessing. So you can hear it. I want you to hear it with your own two ears. Cause see, even after all that, it's still gonna be somebody that don't believe me. After all that.
Did you know TurboTax now offers a lifetime guarantee when you file your taxes? I'm here with tax expert Diane.
The news this evening, an apology for
after all that, it's gonna be somebody that don't believe me. You understand what I'm saying? So what we finna do, I'm finna let y'all hear it for yourself. Now, this is a video called Delegates from... Oh, man, my bad. Let me kill that echo. Sorry. Delegates from African countries apologize for role in slave trade. It's not me. It's not Wikipedia. It's not an article. It's them in the flesh. Let's go.
the news this evening, an apology for the slave trade from an unexpected place. Today, delegates from several African nations read apology letters from tribal leaders.
Well, they say they're sorry for enslaving and trading fellow Africans to nations around the world. KSHB 41 News reporter Leslie Delisbour was there and shares their message.
They sorry for what?
They say they're sorry for enslaving and trading fellow Africans to nations around the world.
They say they sorry for what?
They say they're sorry for enslaving and trading fellow Africans to nations around the world.
For enslaving and trading their fellow Africans to nations around the world.
Read apology letters from tribal leaders.
Well, they say they're sorry for enslaving and trading fellow Africans to nations around the world. KSHB 41 News reporter Leslie Delisbour was there and shares their message of healing.
Reaching across oceans. In song and with letters.
It is very deep and painful to even talk about it sometimes.
Remembering the dark past and the role some African chiefs played in the slave trade.
Confess! Confess your sins. Be clean, and be healed. But just tell the world what you did.
The apology of the awareness that there is a broad culture that contributed to this travesty of enslavement.
This apology is directed specifically to people of, not people of color, Black people, African people, people who have been dispersed in all parts of the world.
Delegates from African countries extending a sincere apology for the actions of their ancestors.
Some African chiefs, in violation of their sworn duty to protect the interest of the people as well as those yet unborn, and will kidnap, sell, trade, and otherwise negotiate for the transfer of their own people to foreigners.
They negotiated for the trade and sale of their own people to foreigners. Okay? It's not Wikipedia. Okay?
In violation of their sworn duty to protect the interest of the people as well as those yet unborn, and will kidnap, sell, trade, and otherwise negotiate for the transfer of their own people to foreigners.
Asking for forgiveness from their estranged African brothers and sisters.
This opportunity today gives us a chance to have the most important of conversations that must happen between our people in addressing the transatlantic slave trade that forever changed people of African descent from continent to continent.
Thinking about the
Confess.
past and its impact.
When you look at a black person and you can't know where they're from, that's the heartbreak of being a black American.
Reflecting on the future.
We have to face up to the things that we are part of and understand why it happened. Because once we can do that, then we can move forward to the next level.
Opening up a new chapter of love, life, and healing.
I now know that they acknowledge, they being in Africa, acknowledge that I'm a sister, that I am a mother, that I am a descendant, and not separating me from the history, not separating my journey of 400 years just because I landed here.
In Kansas City, Kansas, Leslie Delasport, KSHB 41 News.
Okay. So there you have it. There you have it. From the horse's own mouth. Okay. Now, again, what I like to do with this channel, I just like to share information. I like to share information of historical significance. I like to talk about our ancestors. I like to talk about our ancestors been through, and I like to tell individuals things about our ancestors that they may not hear anywhere else. So, like I said in my last video, blood on African hands, African slave catchers, and African slave traders. I wish the people who saw that video will see this video, and the people that called me a liar, said that I was making stuff up, my narrative was wrong, I didn't know what I was talking about. I want them to now look, and I want to see what they're going to say now that I've shown those African nations that I'm talking about confessing to their crimes. Confessing to their crimes and apologizing. What will be said now? What will be said now? You know, they know what they did, and now we all know what they did. One more time, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that like button. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe on this channel, Matthew Daniels TV. You're gonna get the uncut, raw truth. The uncut, raw truth. You're gonna get the history, how you never got it nowhere else. I'm gonna always keep it real. Now, if I do tell you guys something that I'm wrong about and I realize I'm wrong, hey, it's just information. I'm going to come back and I'm going to correct myself. If somebody leave me a comment, ask me a question, I don't know the answer to the question, I'm going to go do the research. I'm going to dig it up and I'm going to try to find it. Okay, but I'm trying to give you guys some stuff that you're not getting nowhere else. So if you haven't already, subscribe and hit that notification bell. Sandra asked you in the chat, says thank you for sharing this with us, and hey, thank you for watching. Thank you for watching, and thank you for being understanding. Because on the last video when I talked about it, people made it seem like I was trying to absolve Europeans for what they did and put all of the spotlight on the Africans. No. You just have to talk about different parts of history, at a time. And so right now, the time is to talk about what the African did. Millions of us, you want me to be quiet about that? Millions? No, we ain't gonna be quiet about that. Like I said, me or somebody in the chat right now, our ancestors may have came here because of the Dahomey, because of Ouida, because of Cameroon, right? Because of Ghana, because of Nigeria, because somebody sold us out. That could actually be a reality. But I thank you guys for watching. I'm not going to hold y'all up any much longer. Make sure you guys share this. We got to get this information out there so everybody can know their history. Thanks for watching Matthew Daniels TV. I am your illustrious host, the writer, author, scribe, and bookworm. But I'm not just a bookworm world. I am the real bookworm. Make sure you get it right. I'm doing the book game like it ain't never been done before. And I'm doing the book game like it'll probably never be done again. Hey, man, read a book. Let's make intelligence great again. Hotep and Taj Malak say facts, fam. I'm out.